Hey there! Have you ever wondered how someone could leave such a deep mark on your life that it feels like you'll never be the same? You're in the right place, because today we'll be focusing on how narcissistic abuse changes you, and more importantly, how to reclaim your sense of self afterward. Narcissistic abuse isn't just about manipulation or control. It's a slow unraveling of who you are. It seeps into your thoughts, emotions, and even your body, leaving you questioning everything. But here's the truth. While this kind of abuse can change you, it can also become the foundation for transformation and strength. Today we'll explore not just the ways narcissistic abuse impacts you emotionally and physically, but also the powerful steps you can take to heal and grow. If you've ever felt trapped by your experiences, this video is here to remind you that you have the power to break free and rebuild. Before we get started, don't forget to hit subscribe and tap the notification bell for more insights on resilience, healing, and living with purpose. The emotional landscape: what narcissistic abuse does to your mind. It's difficult to explain the gradual way narcissistic abuse takes root in your mind. At first, it feels like an anomaly, a few odd moments where things don't quite add up. Maybe it's the way they twist your words during a disagreement, making you second-guess whether you were too harsh or too sensitive, or the way they turn a heartfelt conversation about your needs into a lecture about their sacrifices. You tell yourself it's just a misunderstanding, but over time, the cracks grow, and something inside you starts to shift. You're not just doubting them anymore, you're doubting yourself. This is how narcissistic abuse infiltrates your sense of reality. It doesn't crash in with a sledgehammer, it slips in quietly, like water seeping through a crack in the ceiling, unnoticed until the damage becomes impossible to ignore. You begin to question your memories. Did that really happen the way you remember? Maybe you were overreacting. Gaslighting, one of the most insidious tactics narcissists use, leaves you feeling like a stranger to your own mind. It's as if your thoughts have been tossed into a fog, leaving you stumbling in search of clarity that never comes. What makes this erosion of self even more disorienting is how deliberate it often feels. Narcissists are skilled at using blame and manipulation to rewrite the story in their favor. If you express hurt, they may accuse you of being too emotional or ungrateful. Over time, their words start to sink in, and you begin to believe them. You start policing yourself, adjusting your behavior to avoid their wrath or win their approval. It's not long before your voice, the one that used to guide you, feels muffled under the weight of their criticism. There's also a deeper, more painful layer: the loss of identity. Narcissistic abuse chips away at your sense of self until you're left staring into a mirror and wondering who you've become. Their expectations and demands replace your desires. You stop asking, "What do I want?" because the answer no longer feels relevant. Instead, you ask, "What will keep the peace?" Or, "How can I avoid another fight?" It's not just a matter of feeling controlled. It's the terrifying realization that you've started to disappear in the process. And then there's the constant anxiety. Living with a narcissist feels like walking a tightrope over a pit of fire, never knowing when the next misstep will send you plunging. You adapt by becoming hypervigilant, scanning their mood, tone, and even the subtlest shifts in behavior for signs of danger. Your body stays in a state of high alert, as if bracing for an invisible storm that's always on the horizon. You become so familiar with the stress that you forget what it feels like to relax. Modern psychology tells us this kind of chronic stress has profound effects on the brain. Your fight or flight response, meant to protect you in moments of immediate danger, becomes overactive. It's like a smoke alarm that never stops blaring, even when the fire has long been extinguished. Over time, this wears you down, making it harder to think clearly, make decisions, or even trust your instincts. Stoic wisdom often speaks of the importance of mastering one's perceptions, yet narcissistic abuse twists this idea into a cruel paradox. How can you control your mind when someone else has turned it into a battleground? The truth is, it takes immense courage to face the damage and begin to untangle the web they've spun around your thoughts. But that's the first step to healing, recognizing that the voice of doubt and shame isn't yours. It's theirs. Narcissistic abuse doesn't just change the way you see others, it alters the way you see yourself. It forces you to carry burdens that aren't yours, to question truths you once held dear, and to walk through life as if you're perpetually off balance. Despite all this, you have to always remember that there's a quiet strength that can help you take back your mind, one piece at a time. The path to reclaiming yourself is long, but every small step you take is a declaration. You are more than the damage they tried to leave behind. The physical manifestation, how your body reacts. What many people fail to realize is how deeply emotional abuse imprints itself on the body. It's not just something that lingers in your mind. It embeds itself in your muscles, your breath, your heartbeat, long after the arguments have ended and the apologies, real or fake, have been spoken. Your body still remembers. You might not consciously connect the migraines, the insomnia, or the tension in your shoulders to the narcissist in your life, but the link is there. Your body doesn't lie, even when your mind tries to rationalize or downplay the harm. Chronic stress becomes a silent companion. Living under the emotional manipulation of a narcissist feels like being locked in a pressure cooker. Every day adds another layer of stress that never quite disappears. It's as if you're constantly being chased by a predator that's both invisible and inescapable. This state of hyperarousal might show up as sleepless nights, racing thoughts, or that sinking feeling in your stomach that something terrible is about to happen, even when everything seems calm. Over time, this relentless stress starts to wear you down physically. Maybe you notice your energy levels plummeting, like a phone that drains faster no matter how much you recharge it. The smallest tasks feel difficult because your body is operating on fumes. You might get sick more often as your immune system falters under the constant barrage of stress hormones like cortisol. Digestive problems, headaches, and muscle pain become a regular part of your life. These aren't random ailments. They're your body's way of signaling that something is deeply wrong. Exhaustion takes on a whole new meaning when you're dealing with narcissistic abuse. It's not just physical fatigue, it's a soul-deep weariness that makes even moments of rest feel insufficient. You might lie in bed for hours, but wake up feeling as if you haven't slept at all. That's because your body isn't truly resting. It's on high alert, scanning for the next emotional ambush. This constant state of vigilance creates a feedback loop where your physical symptoms amplify your emotional distress and vice versa. What's even more devastating is the way this physical toll isolates you. When your body is in turmoil, it's harder to connect with others, even those who care about you. You might cancel plans because you're too drained or withdraw because you feel too broken to face the world. And of course, the narcissist often seizes on this isolation, framing it as evidence that you're the problem. It's a cruel cycle. They wear you down until you're too tired to fight back, and then they use your exhaustion against you. But there's another layer to this story, one that speaks to resilience. Even as your body suffers under the weight of narcissistic abuse, it's also trying to protect you. That knot in your stomach when they raise their voice? That's your intuition sounding an alarm. The fatigue that forces you to rest? It's your body demanding the care it's been denied. In many ways, your physical symptoms are a map, guiding you toward what needs attention and healing. Reconnecting with your body is one of the first steps toward reclaiming yourself. Practices like yoga, mindfulness, or even walking in nature can help you begin to release the stress that's been stored in your muscles and tissues. Stoic wisdom teaches us to focus on what we can control, and while you can't erase the past, you can take small, deliberate steps to care for the body that's carried you through it. Narcissistic abuse leaves scars, but it also reveals a truth that's easy to forget. Your body is on your side. It's been fighting for you all along, even when it felt like the world or your mind was working against you. As you learn to listen to its signals and honor its needs, you'll find that healing is possible. The psychological aftermath, patterns, and trauma. Even after the narcissist is gone, their presence lingers in your mind like an echo you can't quite silence. You might tell yourself you're free, but freedom feels hollow when the damage they've done keeps replaying in your thoughts, your decisions, and even your relationships. This is the cruel legacy of narcissistic abuse. It doesn't just leave bruises on the soul, it alters the way you see yourself and the world. One of the most painful truths about surviving narcissistic abuse is the realization of how deeply it conditions you to stay stuck. Trauma bonding, for instance, is a psychological chain that's as real as any physical restraint. It's the paradox of being drawn to someone who hurts you, feeling both trapped and tethered. You remember the good moments, the rare instances when they seemed kind, attentive, even loving, and those memories become the bait that keeps you hooked. It's not weakness, it's survival. Your mind clings to these moments because they offer hope, a sense that maybe things can go back to how they were before the chaos began. But the trauma doesn't stop there. Narcissistic abuse leaves you questioning whether you can trust anyone, including yourself. After all, if someone you loved and cared for could treat you this way, what does that say about your judgment? You might find yourself scanning every interaction for hidden motives, reading too much into people's words, or doubting their sincerity. Trust, once shattered, isn't easily rebuilt. It feels like trying to put together a puzzle where half the pieces are missing and the image keeps changing. This distrust often extends inward. Narcissists are masters at planting seeds of self-doubt, and those seeds can grow into a forest of insecurity long after they're gone. You might catch yourself replaying arguments in your head, wondering if you really were to blame. Even the most minor decisions can feel overwhelming because you've been taught to second-guess yourself at every turn. It's exhausting, this constant battle between the part of you that wants to move forward and the part that's still tangled in the web they spun. And then there's the haunting repetition of the cycle. Many survivors find themselves drawn to similar dynamics in future relationships, not because they want to, but because it feels familiar. The narcissist has reshaped your understanding of love and connection, blurring the line between affection and control. It's like walking through a maze with no exit where every path leads back to the same kind of pain. Recognizing this pattern is both devastating and liberating. It forces you to confront the depth of the damage, but it also offers a way out. Stoicism teaches us that suffering itself is not the problem. It's how we respond to it that shapes our character. The same is true for the psychological scars left by narcissistic abuse. These scars don't have to define you, but they do demand your attention. Healing requires a willingness to sit with the pain, to examine it without judgment, and to understand where it comes from. It's not easy work, but it's necessary if you want to break free from the cycles that have kept you bound. One of the first steps is learning to separate the narcissist's voice from your own. The self-doubt, the criticism, the fear, they're not yours. They were handed to you by someone who wanted to control you, and you don't have to carry them anymore. Over time, you start to see the patterns for what they are, survival mechanisms that no longer serve you. You begin to challenge the beliefs the narcissist instilled in you, replacing them with truths rooted in your values and experiences. This is the essence of reclaiming your mind, choosing to live by your principles instead of the distorted reality they imposed on you. The journey isn't a straight path, and there will be setbacks, but every moment of clarity, every step toward trust, is a victory. As Marcus Aurelius reminds us, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. The psychological aftermath of narcissistic abuse can feel like an immovable obstacle, but it's also an opportunity, a chance to rebuild yourself with intention and strength. You are not defined by what happened to you. The patterns can be broken and the trauma healed. And as you reclaim your power, you'll find that the pieces of yourself you thought were lost were never truly gone. They were simply waiting for you to rediscover them. The journey to reclaiming yourself. Emerging from the shadow of narcissistic abuse feels like waking up in a strange new world. You've been living in survival mode for so long that the concept of thriving feels foreign. The scars are there, etched into your thoughts, your behaviors, and your sense of self. But they're not the end of your story. This is the moment when you begin the journey back to yourself, one step at a time. The first step is recognizing what's been done to you. This might seem simple, but it's often the most challenging part. Narcissistic abuse thrives on confusion and self-doubt, leaving you uncertain about what's real. Acknowledging the reality of your experience is like peeling away layers of denial and distortion to reveal the raw truth underneath. It's painful, but it's also empowering. The moment you name what happened, you begin to take back the narrative. You're no longer the victim of a story someone else wrote. You're the author of your own. Awareness is the foundation of healing. As you start to understand the patterns that held you captive, you gain the power to break them. Maybe you notice how you've been seeking validation from others, a habit formed by years of trying to appease the narcissist. Or perhaps you catch yourself hesitating to set boundaries, fearing conflict or rejection. These realizations can be uncomfortable, but they're also liberating. Each one is a reminder that you can choose differently. Healing is not an easy process, and it doesn't happen overnight. It's more like tending to a neglected garden, pulling out the weeds, nourishing the soil, and patiently waiting for growth. At first, it might feel overwhelming. The damage seems so vast, the work so endless. But with time and persistence, you start to see small signs of progress. A moment of clarity here, a spark of confidence there. These are the seeds of your new self, taking root in the fertile ground of your awareness. Self-compassion is a crucial part of this process. For years, you may have been taught to be your own harshest critic, mirroring the narcissist's voice in your mind. But compassion is the antidote to that inner cruelty. It's the practice of treating yourself with the same kindness and understanding you would offer a dear friend. When you stumble or regress, as you inevitably will, self-compassion reminds you that healing is a journey, not a test of perfection. Trust, too, must be rebuilt, both in others and in yourself. Learning to trust again can feel like walking on thin ice, every step tentative and fraught with fear. But trust isn't about blind faith, it's about discernment. As you heal, you develop the tools to distinguish between those who respect your boundaries and those who don't. And as you honor your intuition, you begin to trust your judgment again. Boundaries become your armor and your sanctuary. After years of having your limits ignored or dismissed, setting boundaries can feel like an act of rebellion, but it's also an act of self-love. Boundaries aren't walls meant to keep people out. They're bridges to healthier relationships that respect your needs and your worth. Each boundary you set is a statement. I value myself enough to protect my peace. Mindfulness can be a powerful ally in this journey. By learning to be present with your thoughts and emotions, you create space between yourself and the pain. You begin to observe the patterns of your mind without being consumed by them. Stoicism teaches us to focus on what we can control, our actions and responses, and mindfulness is a practice that embodies this principle. It reminds you that while you can't change the past, you have the power to shape your future. Healing also involves rediscovering joy. Abuse has a way of dimming your light, making the world seem smaller and darker than it really is. Part of reclaiming yourself is reconnecting with the things that make you feel alive, whether it's a creative hobby, a walk in nature, or simply spending time with people who uplift you. Joy is not a luxury, it's a vital part of your humanity. As you progress, you might find yourself wanting to share your story, not for validation, but to give others hope. Survivors often become healers, using their experiences to guide others through the darkness. In doing so, you transform your pain into purpose, proving that even the deepest wounds can lead to growth. This journey isn't easy, but it's worth every step. With each moment of self-awareness, each act of self-care, and each boundary you set, you reclaim a piece of yourself. You're not just surviving anymore, you're becoming. And as you move forward, you'll come to see that the person you're becoming is someone stronger, wiser, and more beautiful than you ever imagined. Moving forward, finding strength in vulnerability. When you've been hurt so deeply, vulnerability feels like a risk you can't afford to take. You've spent so much time shielding yourself from harm that the idea of opening up again can seem impossible. But vulnerability isn't about exposing yourself to pain. It's about embracing your humanity. It's recognizing that being open, even after everything you've been through, is an act of strength, not weakness. One of the most transformative realizations in the healing process is that your scars don't diminish you, they make you more resilient. Stoic philosophy often emphasizes the idea that adversity is the greatest teacher. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." What you've endured at the hands of a narcissist may feel like it's defined you, but in truth, it has refined you. Each hardship has taught you something about your capacity to endure, adapt, and grow. Moving forward means learning to see your vulnerability not as a liability, but as a bridge to deeper connections. After surviving narcissistic abuse, it's easy to build walls, shutting out anyone who might hurt you again. But true healing comes when you replace those walls with boundaries, strong enough to protect you, yet flexible enough to allow meaningful relationships to flourish. Vulnerability within those boundaries becomes a way to reconnect with others without losing yourself. This is also the time to rediscover your voice. Abuse often leaves you feeling silenced, your thoughts and feelings dismissed or minimized. Reclaiming your voice isn't just about speaking up. It's about knowing that your words and emotions have value. It might start small, a journal entry, an honest conversation with a friend, but each expression is a step toward rebuilding your confidence. You're not just finding your voice, you're finding yourself. As you move forward, you might notice that the world feels different, not because it's changed, but because you have. The same struggles that once overwhelmed you now seem more manageable. You start to approach life with a quiet strength, grounded in the knowledge that you've survived worse. You're more discerning and more mindful of who you let into your space, but you're also more compassionate, both towards yourself and others. Helping others can become a powerful part of your healing. Sharing your story or supporting someone going through a similar experience transforms your pain into purpose. It reminds you that your struggles weren't in vain. They've equipped you with the empathy and wisdom to make a difference. When you offer a hand to someone still in the darkness, you're not just helping them, you're solidifying your journey toward the light. This isn't about pretending everything is perfect or that the scars don't still hurt. Healing isn't about forgetting. It's about finding meaning in what you've endured. It's about letting the pain shape you into someone stronger and more aware. It's about learning to live fully, even when the past tries to pull you back. Your vulnerability is not a weakness. It's your superpower. It allows you to connect, to grow, to love, despite the fear and the risk. And as you move forward, you'll come to see that every step you take, no matter how small, is an act of courage. Vulnerability is proof that you've chosen to keep living, to keep trying, to keep believing in the possibility of a better future. Final reflection: your power to rewrite the narrative. Narcissistic abuse can feel like it robs you of your story. For so long, your life revolved around someone else's needs, opinions, and manipulations. The narrative wasn't yours, it was theirs, written to keep you small, compliant, and unsure of your worth. But here's the truth: their story doesn't define you. It never did. You have the power to reclaim your life and rewrite your narrative, one choice at a time. This isn't about erasing the past, the pain, the confusion, the self-doubt. It's all part of your journey. But it doesn't have to be the conclusion. You can choose to see the experiences not as chains that bind you, but as stepping stones toward a stronger, free version of yourself. Rewriting your narrative starts with small, deliberate actions. Each time you challenge the voice of self-doubt, you take back a piece of your power. When you set a boundary, you declare that your needs and feelings matter. When you choose to trust someone or yourself, again, you prove that you're more than the wounds you carry. These acts may seem small, but they're the threads that weave a new story, one where you are the hero, not the victim. Reflection becomes a vital part of this process. Look back, not to dwell on the pain, but to recognize your strength. Think about the moments when you stood firm, even when it felt like the world was against you. Celebrate the times when you put one foot in front of the other, even when it felt impossible. These are the moments that define you, not the cruelty or the manipulation you endured. As you move forward, remember that healing isn't about perfection. It's about progress. There will be days when the weight of the past feels unbearable, but there will also be days when you feel the lightness of freedom. Both are part of the journey. What matters is that you keep going, that you keep choosing yourself, again and again. Your story is still unfolding, and the pen is in your hands now. You have the power to write a narrative of resilience, growth, and self-discovery. One where your past doesn't overshadow your future, but instead fuels your transformation. Each decision, no matter how small, is a line in this new chapter. Each act of self-love is a declaration. I am more than what happened to me. I am whole. I am worthy. Let this be your truth, not one shaped by the narcissist's voice, but by your own, a voice that is strong, clear, and undeniably yours. You are not just surviving, you are living, and the life ahead of you is yours to create. Thank you for watching this video on how narcissistic abuse changes you and the path to reclaiming yourself. We hope this journey gave you clarity, encouragement, and practical tools to begin your healing process. Remember, the damage you've endured does not define you. It's your response to it that shapes your future. If this video resonated with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear this message. Stay strong, stay grounded, and remember, your story isn't over, it's just beginning. See you next time.